Hey everybody, John the Other here, obviously. Now, as you likely know, the YouTuber known as Count Dankula, real name Mark Meechan, has been charged and found guilty of giving gross offense, violating Section 127 of the Communications Act of 2003, which reads, "A person is guilty of an offense if he A. sends by means of a public electronic communications network a message or other matter that is grossly offensive or of an indecent, obscene, or menacing character, or B. causes any such message or matter to be sent." Now, I saw the commentary on this conviction by Milo Yiannopoulos, and he called the judgment obscene. Mr. Yiannopoulos is correct. It is obscene. It's indecent, it is foul, it's grossly corrupt, and it's shocking to the conscience of any civilized person. And I have thought quite deeply about this conviction and the probable imprisonment of Mr. Mark Meechan. And I find I am unable to convince myself that either the police who arrested him, or the prosecutors, or the judge who convicted him actually thought he was an anti-Semite or a fan of Hitler's Third Reich, and I cannot convince myself that Meechan was any modern equivalent of a Nazi or a neo-Nazi. The police, the prosecutors, and the judge all certainly knew that Mark Meechan, also known as Count Dankula, was engaging in parody and satire. Mr. Meechan made this argument in his trial. The Crown's response was that recording his girlfriend's pug lifting its paw when prompted with "Gas the Jews" was, and I quote, "an odious criminal act that was dressed up to look like a joke." I do not believe that this is the Crown's understanding, because I don't believe a Crown prosecutor can possibly be as completely stupid as this. The prosecutor also claimed in court that Count Dankula's comedy video is, quote, anti-Semitic in nature, and it would cause fear and alarm to the public and stoke religious hatred. I am not making this up. Now, think about that for a second or two. A pug whose name is Buddha raising its paw when a guy with a comedy channel on YouTube prompts it by saying, "Gas the Jews!" And the prosecutor claims in court that this video of a pug raising its paw is in fact not comedy, but instead it is anti-Semitic in nature and could cause fear and alarm and stoke religious hatred. No prosecutor in the UK can possibly be this stupid, so I find it impossible for the prosecutor to believe the claim that it is anti-Semitic or likely to incite hatred or cause fear or blah blah blah. The judge, in this case of the Scottish court called a sheriff, said Meechan's video, quote, contains a clear threat of incitement to carry out a seriously violent act. I also don't believe the judge. I do not believe that Sheriff Derek O'Carroll thinks that this is true, regardless that these are his words. In fact, the purpose of this judge's words, pretending to interpret Count Dankula's video as an actual incitement to violence, I believe, has a wholly different purpose. The purpose of the judge's words and the prosecutor's are, in my opinion, as follows: to terrify and shock the members of the public and instill in them a fear against questioning or commenting on the outrageous behavior of elected and appointed public officials. Now, being more specific, the judge's purpose was to send through the national news organs by means of a public electronic communications a message to the public that was indecent, obscene, and of menacing character. And by issuing that judgment in the courtroom, to cause such a message to be sent. In addition, last week, the Home Secretary of the UK, Amber Rudd, announced the launch of a new police unit tasked with going after internet trolls, which was also clearly for the purpose of conveying to the public a message intended to offend and shock the conscience of each person understanding that message and menace them into terrified silence. Because in the country that gave the world the comedy tradition of The Goon Show and Monty Python and Benny Hill and Billy Connolly, and every comedian who inherited the legacy of those brilliant comedians, It is clearly and unambiguously a message of purposeful and gross offense delivered by the Home Secretary, conveyed in the most indecent and obscene manner, both by Miss Rudd and the Office of the Prosecutor and Sheriff Derek O'Carroll. Fortunately for all of them, I am not a citizen of the UK, so none of those individuals are probably guilty of an offence under Section 127 of the Communications Act of 2003. It is fortunate for them that no citizen of the UK was offended or menaced by their message. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and have a lovely day. Now, if I'm wrong and they're not guilty of an offence, the judge, the prosecutor, the arresting police officers, and the Home Secretary, if I am wrong and all of those individuals have in fact committed the offense named in Section 127 of the Communications Act, then what you have is a nation whose highest officials have created, and in the act of creating have also repudiated the law themselves, have violated and repudiated the law, all in one grand act of obscenity, in which case what you have is an illegitimate outlaw state. And of course that would be impossible, so that's probably not what happened.